Hello everyone, I'm Ashley Clarke. I'm a sophomore here at Wharton studying finance and business analytics. Today I'm going to be sharing a little bit with you guys about our Comcast project that I did through Wharton Customer Analytics Accelerator Challenge last semester. So I actually worked on this project with a group of 4 team members, Cyrus, Ahmed, Matthew, and Emily, and they were incremental to the success, so I just wanted to mention them today. This project focused on 3 major questions. Firstly, how do customers value individual products and bundles that Comcast offers? What regional and product segments of customers exist? And how do the segments of customers value these products differently? And we wanted to answer those products with data-driven results. So today I'm going to go over first the methodology, second, how we use k-means clustering in random forests to create factor reduction, thirdly, the pricing model that we actually built for Comcast, and finally, the findings and takeaways of the model. Before I begin, I just wanted to say that some of the stuff actually is X'd out due to the non-disclosure agreement, but the methodology should still be pretty clear. So now going to the methodology and how we approach the problem. The first thing that we did was clustering, then we moved on to random forest, and then we went into a linear regression model, which was highly interpretable. And the clustering really helped us get a visual picture of how Comcast customers look, and the random forest, while difficult to interpret, actually showed us which factors were most important, and then we used all of these models and combined them into a linear regression model at the end, which made it pretty clear which actual products were driving the customer's lifetime value. So now moving into how we used clustering in random forest. So the first question behind k-means clustering is why would we use it? Firstly, it's able to detect raw patterns in the data and essentially able to find the most natural grouping of customers, meaning that we're finding customers that look very similarly and act similarly, meaning they'll buy similar products and be attracted to similar bundles. So how k-means clustering works, for those of you that aren't aware, is it minimizes within cluster variance while maximizing between cluster variance. Essentially what that means is you have groups that look the most similar within and they look the most different from other groups. So we found 4 distinct clusters within Comcast data that they provided us. First, we had the video and internet clusters, then we had technologists, traditionalists, and the all-in-one. So while a lot of the data is X'd out, essentially what this means is that the video and internet customers really put most of their value on which video package they were getting and which internet, while the technologists really only cared about how long and how fast their speed was, and the traditionalists were the ones that wanted video, internet, and voice in a traditional pattern, while the all-in-one customers basically wanted all the product offerings that Comcast had to offer. So we did a lot of analysis with these different clusters, but sadly I don't have time to talk about that all today. But the significant thing we found is that the clusters actually have significant differences in revenue that they spend. So if you look over to the graph on the right, you can see that the technologist, video, traditionalist, and all-in-one customers all fall at different points, and their bar plot median is very different from each other. Additionally, we found that regional affiliations exist in clusters, while there's certain percentages in the Central Division, Northeast Division, and West Division. We found that this was true, but then we actually looked at the different factors. We did this for every single factor, but today I only have time to talk about the internet speed tiers, and just to show you how these clusters can provide unique insights. So the video and internet clusters prefer lower speeds, as you can see on the left, while the technologists prefer moderate speeds, and the traditionalists and all-in-one customers prefer higher speeds. So what we see is by segmenting these customers, we can actually figure out what kinds of products they want, and maybe even how to price these products. And then looking over to the right, we can see that this actually changes their willingness to pay, where 3/4 of the clusters are willing to spend a certain amount of money more when you jump from a different speed tier. And we did this for every single cluster and every single factor, as you can imagine. But now I'm going to talk a little bit more about the random forest that we use for actually factor reduction and variable selection. So for those of you not familiar with random forest, it acts really similarly to a decision tree, but a decision tree can be pretty unstable and not that predictive. So what a random forest does essentially is generates a lot of these decision trees and then averages them together to reduce variance. So it can be highly difficult to interpret the results of a random forest, and they have long training times, but basically what they do is provide you with a prediction, and we use them in our model to show us, hey, which factors are the most important to actually determining how long the customer is going to stay with Comcast and how much money they're going to spend. So on this next slide, you can actually see the models that we created by region, and you can see that the R-squared value represents the accuracy of the random forest model. So we were getting like 0.9, 0.9, 0.87, so pretty high R-squared values from these random forest models. But more importantly, you can see that we actually see the overall value of each factor. So you can see the video tiers, the HSD tiers, and all of these and how they come together and their actual importance of figuring out how much a customer is going to spend in each region and in the overall model. So we also provided Comcast with the SHAP, or Shapley additive explanations. So we actually created a force plot, which is a visualization basically of how much these different factors are going to increase or decrease based on the base value that our model predicted. So as you can see on the right, we can see that different promo tiers, different video tiers, and different speed tiers actually push this value up or down depending on which factor you actually choose, which is pretty cool. This is just an example of one product, not actually how a bundle would work. And then we can get the predictive value based off of that. And then on the bottom right, you can actually see the feature value, and the features at the top have the most predictive value, while the features at the bottom do not. Now we're going to move into how we actually use these models and combine them to create a linear model. So we actually created a pricing model using lasso, PCA, bridge, and multiple other regression techniques that aren't shown in these slides, and then we combine them all together to kind of say, hey, what should be important in this linear model based on the random forest, based on k-means clustering, which are not that interpretable results, and how can we put that into something that Comcast can apply to their product offerings? So as you can see, we have the base, and then we have all the different factors, and though they're actually X'd out today, we provided an exact dollar amount that customers, based on the data, value each of these product offerings. And here's an example, basically, of how to use our model to actually price the offerings. So you'd start, like the green bar, the purple bar, and the red bar all would represent a different feature, and then you would add the prices together to actually figure out how to price the bundle. So we were actually curious, hey, how does this differ by region? And maybe a customer in the West wouldn't pay as much for the customer in the East based on video tier or something like that. So we were curious in examining that question. So we created a pricing model for every single region. While it's more interesting if you can actually see how the regions differ, you can see that basically we see higher value for video tiers X and X, and a lower base price overall for the Northeast region. And then if we move to the Central region, we see also that they value different things than the other models. And then for the West region, we found essentially the same thing, but that they value lower video tiers. So we actually broke down each variable and figured out, hey, how is this going to impact the model? But we actually found the base prices are different for each region. So the base price is basically the base package where you don't have any additional add-ons, and how much is a customer going to be willing to pay for that? So as you can see from the bar part on the left, it's pretty different across regions. And then we also looked at the promotional effect. So you can see that as promotions increase, you do see that customers are willing to pay more, essentially because as customers get promotions, normally they get these promotions because they're buying more products, but you can see that it's not exactly the same across all regions. Then finally, I'll show you the one for pricing, where you can see that there's a pretty linear relationship between the speed tier that Comcast is offering and the price the customers are willing to pay, which is what you'd expect. And then being able to combine all of these variables together, we were actually able to draw even more insights than what are on these slides. But now I'll move into the key findings and takeaways from our Comcast presentation. So what we found first from the k-means clustering is that X and X are drivers of revenue. So we were essentially able to pinpoint what drives the revenue for Comcast. and suggested them that they segment their customers by these factors for future success. But we also figured out that they could have upselling opportunities because there essentially might not be a difference between a certain video tier and another video tier, but they might be charging twice as much, and customers might be willing to pay for that if they upsell this. So video and internet and traditionalists with X tend to pay less than customers with X. What that essentially means is that right now they're not getting their maximized potential, and we were able to actually pinpoint that Comcast should push customers away from certain products towards other products. And the same thing with traditionalists and all-in-one. And I'm sorry I can't actually tell you what they should buy. And then our key findings from our supervised learning techniques were that the features with the highest customer values, we actually put the percentage of the bundle that the price should represent, and basically the percent worth that that feature represents in the bundle. And we also figured out that if customers want to save money, they value products differently, and we actually said how much savings they predict they should get. But then also we wanted to tell Comcast, hey, what products aren't actually affecting the price the customer is willing to pay, but might cost you money. So we actually listed that for them too. And then finally, to our key takeaways from the presentation is that pricing remains fairly constant across all regions. As you remember with the pricing models, you saw the original one first, and then the regional ones didn't look that different from what you'd seen before. We also were able to identify their strongest competitor in the Central and West region, while maybe there was a different, stronger competitor in the Northeast region. And then we were able to say that these certain types of customers value video services much less than the other types of customers, which was cool, and we were able to combine the linear regression and the k-means clustering to get to that result. And then finally, we were saying that X type of customer has a higher willingness to pay for internet, and X values any internet speed equally at lower tiers and values internet less overall. So essentially, going back to our original questions, we were able to tell Comcast what their customers look like through k-means clustering, then able to use random forests to figure out what their customers care about, and then finally we were able to actually put numeric values on this by combining our unsupervised and supervised learning techniques to actually figure out how customers value products and product offerings.